The most heated smartphone debate on the internet right now has to be which one's better, the OnePlus 15 or the iQOO 15. And that's exactly what I'm going to be doing in this video, comparing these two banger devices across different parameters like the design, the display, the software, the camera, the performance, battery, every single thing that you need to know about. And I'm going to try to keep this as fair and as balanced as possible so that neither one of the fan groups, swarms the comments. All right, let's get down to this comparison. If you're watching me for the first time, I'm Ershad. This is Trakin Tech English, your destination for detailed, incisive gadget reviews. Now, both the phones have a similar flat back, flat sides, and flat front, which is an also common look for flagship designs these days. Even the camera modules look largely similar, primarily because they have this square-cle design. It's squarish with rounded corners. But iQOO does have this one tiny little advantage with that camera module, and it is the monster halo light. So basically, whenever you get an incoming call, notifications, or if you're making NFC tap payments, or if you're playing music on your phone, you can have this light glow very subtly, very nicely. It's a very deft touch. Interestingly, both these phones have the same backing material. Basically, you get fiberglass and actual glass. So the Sandstorm variant of the OnePlus 15 and this Alpha Black variant of the iQOO 15 actually use fiberglass. But the Sandstorm version of the OnePlus 15 uses micro arc oxidation, which actually makes it more durable than regular fiberglass. And the other variants, of course, use glass, and therefore the glass variants are actually heavier than the fiberglass variants. In terms of the dimensions and the weight, the iQOO 15 is actually slightly taller compared to the OnePlus 15 because it has a slightly larger display. It's also slightly heavier compared to the OnePlus 15, but it's such a slight difference that you do not really notice that in daily usage, and both feel very similar to use every day, primarily because of the similar kind of boxy designs, the similar thickness, all of that. However, when it comes to durability, OnePlus definitely has an advantage. Firstly, you get up to IP69K rating, which is not available on the iQOO 15. On the iQOO 15, what you get is IP68 and IP69, which is also present on the OnePlus 15. Now, secondly, this black variant and the purple variant of the OnePlus 15 actually has, Corning Gorilla Glass 7i protection on the rear and Corning Gorilla Glass Victus 2 protection on the front. On the iQOO 15, you get shot sensation alpha protection on the front, but I'm not so sure if there is any glass protection on the rear. Now, finally, the ports and buttons are largely similar on both, including the fact that you do have an infrared blaster on both and a USB Type-C Gen 3.2 port. But the one advantage with the OnePlus 15 is the plus key, with which you can actually by default open the Mindspace, or if you want to, you can change it to open anything or any app of your choice. Now, whether you like the design of the OnePlus 15 or the iQOO 15 completely depends on you, because design is subjective. But when it comes to the build quality and overall functionality of the design itself, I think OnePlus has a slight bit of an advantage compared to iQOO. Now, before I get to the display, the performance, the software, the camera, the battery life, all of that, if you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, it would be great if you do that, primarily because we're trying to hit 1 million soon and we need your support, and we keep making such awesome content for you. Now let's compare the displays on both these phones. Both have OLED LTPO panels, but iQOO is slightly larger compared to OnePlus. Now, that's just some basic difference between the two displays, but let's get down to some performance testing and let's find out which one's actually better across different parameters. So now, while both the phones offer LTPO 1 to 120 Hz refresh rate in the system UI, iQOO can reach 144 Hz and OnePlus can reach 165 Hz in certain games, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. Now, iQOO continues to use a 2K display, whereas OnePlus has reduced the resolution down to 1.5K, which gives it a bit of an edge in terms of pixels per inch. iQOO 15's display can get brighter outdoors with the high brightness mode reaching an excellent 2600 nits. OnePlus can only do 1800 nits. In fact, you also get an anti-reflective screen protector pre-applied on the iQOO 15's display. It's not a coating, by the way, which means that the iQOO 15 is better at cutting out reflections on the display compared to the OnePlus 15. But if you want the same anti-reflective experience on the OnePlus 15, you can buy a screen protector for the OnePlus 15 as well. Also, one of the things that I noticed with the screen protector on the iQOO 15 is that it scratches up very easily, so you might have to replace it pretty soon. As for the HDR content, you get support for HDR10 playback and Dolby Vision playback on Netflix on both the phones, so that's good. But the iQOO 15 can get very bright, up to 6000 nits at 1% APL, whereas the OnePlus 15 can do 3600 nits but at 20% APL. However, during side-by-side testing of HDR content, I noticed that the iQOO 15's specular highlights go much brighter than the OnePlus 15. Another advantage on iQOO is that you do get the Pro Color mode, which means that the color accuracy is much better compared to the OnePlus 15's panel, which does not have a Pro Color mode. And that is pretty evident, especially when you look at the skin tones in HDR content, where OnePlus has a bit of a red cast, which iQOO does not have. Now, both the phones have a very good ultrasonic in-display fingerprint scanner, but the iQOO 15's haptic feedback motor this year is superb. It's way better than the OnePlus 15. Now, when it comes to the sound, both these phones support Bluetooth high-res codecs like LDAC and LHDC, which is pretty good. But more importantly, what I noticed is that the OnePlus 15 stereo speakers get fuller and richer compared to the iQOO 15. Take a listen to it and let me know what you guys think in the comments. Overall, the display is a strong point on the iQOO 15. Obviously, it's better than the OnePlus 15 if you ask me, but the OnePlus 15 has better audio experience. Now, about the display, I really want to know, what is your take? Do you prefer the higher 165Hz refresh rate, or would you rather actually stick to a 2K resolution display? Next up, we're going to be talking about the performance, and things are going to get really spicy, because both the phones have the exact same specs, except for the fact that the higher end variant of the OnePlus 15 has faster RAM speeds, but it all boils to performance tuning. So let's take a look at, how these two perform. Of course, I'd be starting off with the benchmarks, but let it be known that OnePlus 15 was in the performance mode and iQOO 15 was in the monster mode. Now, OnePlus beats iQOO in AnTuTu by a decent margin, and one of the major reasons for that is because OnePlus has the faster RAM speeds. iQOO registered the highest single core score for a Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5 phone, but OnePlus beats it in multi-core score. OnePlus offers better storage read-write speeds compared to iQOO despite using the same UFS 4.1 storage. Now, in our 40-thread 30-minute CPU throttle test, OnePlus offered a far superior CPU stability compared to iQOO. In fact, even the GPU stability was higher on the OnePlus in our 3D Mark Wildlife Extreme Stress test. The GPU scores in Solar Bay and Steel Nomad Lite tests were within touching distance of each other on both the phones. Now, these are benchmarks, and here we can clearly tell that OnePlus does have a leg up compared to iQOO, but not everybody is going to be running benchmarks every day. What matters is real-world gaming performance for the gamers out there, because these two phones are targeting gamers. So let's take a look at that. Now, first I want to talk about the fact that iQOO has a supercomputing Q3 chip. Now, with this, what you get is ray tracing, a lossless game frame interpolation, and super game resolution as well. There's also a large 8000mm square vapor cooling chamber inside the iQOO 15. Now, OnePlus does have a couple of dedicated chips. One is for enhanced touch response rate, which enables 3200Hz instantaneous touch sampling, which is the best in the industry. And you also get a Wi-Fi chip for enhanced Wi-Fi performance, and it's called G2. But it does have, resolution scaling and a lossless game frame interpolation as well. Now, the way OnePlus does it is by just tapping on to the Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5's 3nm chipset, because it is very powerful. You don't need a separate, chip for it. You also get a 5731mm square vapor cooling chamber, and then there is this Glacier supercritical aerogel layer to insulate the phone's exterior. Now, let's talk about BGMI, right? I mean, in BGMI, you get native 120 FPS on both. Now, in COD Mobile, OnePlus has a leg up with native 165 FPS gameplay. iQOO can do up to 120 FPS. Now, Genshin Impact performance is largely similar on both in native 60 FPS, but when we bump up the resolution to 120 FPS with interpolation, OnePlus is just incredibly better with more consistent frame rates and performance, clearly showcasing that the native level interpolation that OnePlus has achieved at the 3nm chipset level is much better than the supercomputing Q3 chip. At least from our testing, I can confidently say that the OnePlus 15 is the best tuned Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5 phone that we've tested till date, better than the iQOO 15 as well. Now, talking about batteries on both these phones, you get large silicon carbon batteries, and with iQOO what you get is a 7000 mAh battery, whereas OnePlus offers a 7300 mAh battery, which is slightly larger. What's important is how the battery is tuned for efficiency, and OnePlus once again does a better job. Consistently, I was getting better screen on time on OnePlus 15 compared to the iQOO 15. Yeah, it's not just the performance tuning, but even the efficiency tuning is better on the OnePlus compared to iQOO. Now, charging speeds wise, the OnePlus 15 charges at 120 watt, iQOO charges at 100 watts, and with wireless charging, you get 50 watt support on OnePlus and 40 watt support on iQOO. Honestly, both charge very fast. 100 watt, 120 watt is very good. I have no complaints. And here, it doesn't really matter if OnePlus charges slightly faster than iQOO, because it's not too much of a difference anyway. A 5-10 minute difference is not going to make too much of a difference to your life. But yes, technically, OnePlus is better. Now, network performance has been excellent on both. There is nothing really separating the two. You're getting really good 5G performance on both Airtel and Jio. Wi-Fi capabilities are really good. You get NFC. Yes, Bluetooth 6.0 on OnePlus and Bluetooth 5.4 on iQOO. But I mean, how many of you actually use Bluetooth 6.0 products in daily life? Alright, now time to talk about the software. OnePlus runs on Oxygen OS 16 based on Android 16, whereas this time iQOO actually runs on Origin OS 6 based on Android 16. Yes, upgraded from FunTouch OS, which is definitely a huge advantage now. Another advantage on the iQOO 15 is that iQOO is promising 5 plus 7 years of updates, which means 5 years of OS updates and 7 years of security updates. Whereas OnePlus is promising 4 plus 6 years of updates in comparison. So iQOO does have a leg up there. However, I still feel that Origin OS, while it's good, it still has some catching up to do in terms of finesse and premium nature of the Oxygen OS experience that you get with the OnePlus 15. Let me share a few examples that outrightly come to mind. So the VApp store, unless you disable it, is on by default and sends you notification, which means that you need to switch off the notifications, which you can do very easily. And once you switch it off, you won't get troubled. However, there's one interesting thing that happened. I hadn't switched off the VApp store notification, and I actually downloaded outdo APK. And after I installed it, it said that, do you want to delete the APK? I was like, wow, that's such a nice little, reminder to give me. Yes, please delete the APK. And I hit the delete button, and immediately it took me to the VApp store. And instead of deleting the APK directly, it showed me a bunch of recommendations and notifications. Now, this is not a flagship experience for me. But yes, like I mentioned, you can switch off the notifications. You don't need to click on them, and don't click on them. Otherwise, this is what you'll experience. In comparison, Oxygen OS 16 is more refined, it's smoother, and doesn't add any bloatware either. Plus, it offers more AI features as well. Also, there are some third-party apps pre-installed, but games like Block Blast are also pre-installed. I don't know if many people are playing it, but thankfully you can uninstall that, so that's not too much of a problem. Now, these are the kind of experiences that I wanted to really highlight so that you can understand that, OnePlus feels a little more premium in terms of Oxygen OS 16 compared to Origin OS 6. Now, if you want to know about all that you can do with Origin OS 6 and Oxygen OS 16, I have detailed videos on both the operating systems. You should get that on the channel, or a link should pop up right now. Go check it out. Because if I get into the details of it, it'll get really long. But yeah, overall, I still prefer Oxygen OS over Origin OS. But yes, Origin is definitely a step up from FunTouch. For the final battle, we're going to be comparing the cameras on both these phones. And truth be told, I thought that it would be a cakewalk for the iQOO 15, but I couldn't have been more wrong. Let's take a look at the pictures. Now, since both the phones have the same 1 by 1.56 inch sensor, it helps that OnePlus 15 can get you 26 megapixel high-res outputs. With this, you can clearly see that OnePlus captures more details in the 26 megapixel samples compared to the 12.5 megapixel pixel bin samples on the iQOO 15. That said, I do like the 12.5 MP samples that I got with the iQOO 15, mainly because it doesn't overprocess any of the information and the details look very natural. But where iQOO does a good job is in HDR tuning. You get a far better highlight control and more details on the shadows too. Even when shooting people against the light, you can tell that iQOO is clearly superior here. Also, iQOO offers 3 different color modes to choose from, basically vivid, textured, and natural. Now, natural is my favorite, and in general, with this color mode, you can get closer to neutral color reproduction with the iQOO 15 compared to the OnePlus 15. Whether it's the reds, the greens, and the blues, I feel like in landscape shots in particular, iQOO does a better job compared to OnePlus. But in low light, OnePlus 15 is the clear winner, if you ask me. You get brighter images with more details pulled out from the shadows. More importantly, if you look at the 100% crop, the details are more true to life and clearer compared to the slightly over-processed look of the iQOO 15. My only gripe is that the color accuracy and the whole dynamics of the green color of the trees here could have been better. OnePlus 15 doesn't do as good a job as the iQOO 15 does. Now, I thought that OnePlus was messing with the skin tones. Well, iQOO is doing the exact same thing, and that's across all the 3 different color modes: vivid, textured, and natural. In fact, with the OnePlus 15, you can actually use the master mode to get very close to the natural skin tone of the person you're shooting. But note that in the auto mode, it shoots a little under, and you will have to actually pick up the exposure a little bit so that the picture looks a little better. But regardless, you have like a bunch of controls in your hand which helps you shoot like better skin tones compared to the iQOO 15 anyway with the master mode. Now, in portraits, interestingly, at 35mm, OnePlus has better details, edge cutouts, colors, and bokeh drop-off too. I also like the fact that OnePlus actually gets the color, the red color of my jacket spot on here compared to iQOO. At 50mm, however, iQOO is better at edge detection, but only by a slight margin. But at 85mm and further at 100mm, iQOO just cleans the floor here. Overall, I would stick to the 85mm and 100mm of the iQOO 15 for portrait shots, and I would be very happy with the kind of results that you get with it compared to something like the OnePlus 15. In ultra-wide shots, since both have a smallish sensor, they're both equally average in terms of detail retention. However, in low light, OnePlus handles the scene better, unlike the iQOO, which just washes out all the details with aggressive smoothing, and it looks like an oil color painting. OnePlus is also the clear winner when it comes to selfies. You get excellent skin tones and details in regular selfies, and in low light, it is way better than iQOO's AI night selfies. Zoom, however, is one area where iQOO has the clear lead. In daylight zoom shots at 2x and 3x, you can definitely see more details in the iQOO 15. At 3.5x, I expected the OnePlus to be superior, but iQOO actually matches up to the OnePlus in terms of details with the 3.5x as well. Even at longer zoom ranges, for example at 6x, 7x and 20x, iQOO is the one that easily comes out on top. However, at 60x, when the AI processing kicks in, I think OnePlus does a better job compared to iQOO. I did also shoot some low-light zoom shots with both the phones, and at every single zoom level, which is 2x, 3x, 3.5x, 6x, and 7x, I preferred the iQOO over OnePlus. Now, finally coming to video recording, both the phones can shoot 60 FPS using all the cameras in 4K resolution, no less. Now, with the primary camera at 4K 60 FPS in SDR videos, the videos captured in daylight look largely similar in terms of quality. Even the audio recording is almost equally good on both.
This video is shot using the iQOO 15 and the OnePlus 15 using the primary lens at 4K 60 FPS.
But in low light, iQOO 15 has a brighter image and captures more details in the dark. And it also does have more noise. OnePlus, on the other hand, cuts out the noise but doesn't capture as much detail as the iQOO, and it's generally slightly darker too. Although having said that, with OnePlus, you do get a plethora of advantages. Firstly, you can shoot 4K 120 FPS videos using the primary camera and the zoom camera. In fact, you can shoot Dolby Vision videos on the OnePlus 15, which you can't on the iQOO 15, and you can also shoot log videos. And if you look at the videos recorded using the ultra-wide, the zoom, and the selfie camera, I feel like OnePlus does a better job compared to iQOO. So overall, if you look at it, it's not like a clean win for the iQOO. Like I said at the start, yes, iQOO does a better job at HDR, portraits, and even at zoom. But when it comes to the primary camera performance in low light, in selfies, in video recording, even ultra-wide, I think OnePlus has an edge over the iQOO. So now coming to the conclusion part of it, and the iQOO 15 and the OnePlus 15 are actually available at the exact same retail price of 72,999. Now, where iQOO has an advantage is in the fact that you actually get a larger discount of 8,000 rupees if you have the right credit card, whereas on OnePlus it's 4,000 rupees, which means that the asking price actually becomes lower, and most people do find a way to get that credit card, and you can actually buy the iQOO 15 for about 65,000 rupees. And that's the pricing, but the battle is a lot more intense this year. It's very difficult to actually pick one of these two phones as the absolute best option for everybody, because the iQOO 15 has better display, it has superior haptics as well, which feels very premium, and it also has a slightly better overall camera experience, especially if you care about telephoto. OnePlus 15, on the other hand, has a superior performance tuning. The battery life, in my experience, was also better, and when it comes to selfies and video recording, again, OnePlus does have an advantage. As for the other parameters, mostly all things are similar on both, except for one thing, and that is the fact that OnePlus's software experience feels more premium and flagship grade compared to iQOO's, which is getting there but not there yet. But yes, overall, if you ask me, I'm still tilting in favor of the OnePlus 15 over the iQOO 15 purely because of the Oxygen OS experience. So now that you know everything about these two phones and I've broken it down in the simplest of words possible, which one of these would you pick? Let me know in the comments. That's it from me for this one. I'll see you guys in the next one. Until then, keep tracking and stay safe.